Good evening, one and all. I welcome you all to this session. The topic for this session is A Country Gagged and Bound. As panelists, we have in our midst Mr. Arun Shourie, Mr. Girish Karnad, Ms. Shubha Mudgal, Mr. Shekhar Gupta, Mr. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi, Mr. Joe Cruz, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, Mr. Swapan Dasgupta, and Mr. Sankarshan Thakur. The moderator for this session is Arshia Sattar. Before we begin this session, the organizers would like to say a few words.
It's been a fantastic 3 days for this third edition of the Bangalore Literature Festival, and a few thank yous are in order. I'm going to keep it very short. First up, of course, Vikram, Shiny, and our families for having put through all the craziness of the past few days and months. The festival anchor, the Friends of BLF, a group of 50 plus individuals in the city that have come together and felt that it was absolutely important for them to keep this festival community funded. So a big thank you to the Friends of BLF. We've received some phenomenal support from the state government, the government of Karnataka, both the Department of Kannada and Culture, as well as the Department of Tourism. So a big thank you to them. For the venue and the hospitality, Crown Plaza, Bengaluru. In particular, I'd like to call out Mr. Kiran Shah from Crown Plaza and Velankani Park, as well as his team, for opening up what's otherwise a private space to all of us today. And this venue and all the hospitality that you see here is really all thanks to Kiran. So Kiran, I know you're somewhere in the audience. A big thank you to you. Of course, all of the authors and speakers who've come from far and wide, both within Bangalore, of course, from the state, the country, as well as from outside, traveled to be with us, and it's been enriching sessions with all of them, for all of us, so a big thank you to them. The volunteers from Symbiosis Institute who worked hard behind the scenes to make all of this happen, thank you to them as well. Our board of advisors, led by Sri Chandrasekhar Kambar and Mr. T.V. Mohan Das Pai, the press, electronic and print media, television, and very quickly, some of the key support that we've got from organizations like Harman, Indigo, Airtel, ITC, Microland, JSW, our event partner Redbox, Somi and his team, BMTC and the Bangalore International Airport for promotion, LCA, which is the Electronic City Industries Association, for again opening up Electronic City to us, Shankara Infrastructure, our festival bookstore partner, that's Oxford Bookstore, our PR partner Madison, Radio Indigo and Radio City, Suvarna News and Kannada Prabha. Some of the design that you see both on our website as well as the design that you see around here, Chug's Design, 2M Creative, Kumar La Noche, Nomad, Shrooms, Campus Diaries, Red Mist. Our programming partners, Alliance Francaise, Goethe Institute, the Max Muller Bhavan, the University of Queensland, the Australia Council for the Arts, ISME, Sempre, publishers, Alchemy, Amaryllis, Rolly Books, Aleph, Westland, Sahitya Academy, HarperCollins, Rupa, and Pratham Books. A few interesting things that I'd like to mention that have been different about the Bangalore Literature Festival this year. We pioneered the concept of a pitch session for aspiring authors to meet with literary agents and publishers. We call this LitMart. We had probably over 50 entries come through, and we shortlisted them to probably around 20, and we had a pitching session, and there were at least, I think, a handful of aspiring authors who made some really interesting pitches that got responses from the publishers saying, here, look, here's my card, please get back in touch with us. So I think that's been a good first, and we plan to keep that going. Bangalore for for being known as the tech city. Again, I think for the first ever time, we've had live streaming of the Bangalore Literature Festival, and we've gone to audiences of probably 500 plus across the world. And I think that's hopefully a trendsetter, and we want to keep that going as well. So that's been new. We've also tried to do a lot of our own publishing. A team led by Pranita, Charanya, and a few others have ensured that every single session that we see here has gotten published. A report has gotten out published live fairly quickly. Again, in BLF reports and BLF Live, that's a first as well. So I thought I'd call out a few of those things up front, just trying to innovate and ensure that we're keeping the interest alive and ensuring that more and more audiences come to us. I'd also like to finally thank Mr. V. Ravichandar. I know he's in the audience somewhere as well. From the bottom of our heart, I think a lot of what you see here, a lot of the friends of BLF, and for being not just our chief advisor, but at times even head cook and bottle washer, jumping in wherever there's challenges. I think Ravi has been a huge strength for all of us through the 3 editions of the Bangalore Literature Festival. I'd really like to give it to Ravi. A huge round of applause, please. It's been great for Vikram Shaini and myself to put this together, and we'll keep doing this. Hope to see more and more of you come back to us each year, and thank you very much.
I would now like to introduce our panelists. Author, journalist, and politician Arun Shourie has received several national and international awards, including the Padma Bhushan, the Magsese Award, the Dadabhai Navroji Award, the Astor Award, and the International Editor of the Year Award. He was a minister in the Government of India 1998 to 2004. His books include Does He Know a Mother's Heart?, How Suffering Refutes Religions, Worshipping False Gods, Falling Over Backwards, an essay against reservations and against judicial populism, The World of Fatwas, or the Sharia in Action, Harvesting Our Souls and Hinduism, Essence and Consequence. Playwright, writer, filmmaker, versatile actor, and screenwriter, Mr. Girish Karnad is a Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Nanpit awardee. He has won the Central Sangeet Natak Academy Award, Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay Award, and numerous national awards for his films. His plays include Haya Vandana, Ma Nishada, Yayati, Tuglak, Nagamandala, and Beda Karu on Toast, while his movies include Samskara, Manthan, Nishant, Swami, Umbarta, Kadalan, The Prince, Dor, Iqbal, and Ekta Tiger. A singer of Hindustani classical music, Miss Shubha Mudgal, also sings Khayal, Tumri, Dadra, pop, and fusion. She bagged the National Film Award for Best Non-Feature Film Music Direction for Amrit Beach in 1996, the Gold Plaque Award for Special Achievement in Music for a music in the film Dance of the Wind at the Chicago International Film Festival in 1998, and was awarded the Padma Shri in 2000. Mr. Shekhar Gupta's works include some of the most significant investigations in contemporary journalism in the region, from Indira Gandhi's Operation Blue Star to the disastrous Indian intervention in Sri Lanka, from tracking Pakistani's politics and military to the first Afghan jihad and its effect in Kashmir. A recipient of the Padma Bhushan in 2009, he is the author of Assam, A Valley Divided, and a monograph, India Redefines Its Role. Mr. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi is author of The Lost Flamingos of Bombay and The Last Song of Dusk. He has written for Time and the New York Times. R.N. Joe de Cruz is a Tamil writer, novelist, and documentary film director. He won the Sahitya Academy Award in 2013 for his novel Korkai. Rajiv Malhotra is an Indian-American researcher, writer, and speaker on current affairs as they relate to civilizations, cross-cultural encounters, religion, and science. At the peak of his career, when he owned 20 companies in several countries, he took early retirement at age 44 to pursue philanthropy, research, and public service. He established Infinity Foundation for this purpose in 1994. He has authored many articles, provided strategic guidance to numerous organizations, and has over 300 video lectures available online. Founder director of Infinity Foundation in Princeton, he also serves as chairman of the Board of Governors of the Center for Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and is advisor to various organizations. Swapan Dasgupta has edited a collection of essays, Niraj Chaudhary, The First 100 Years. A co-participant of the weekly show, Politically Incorrect with Mani Shankar Iyer on NDTV, he has held senior editorial posts at The Statesman, The Daily Telegraph, The Times of India, The Indian Express, and India Today, where he was managing editor till 2003. Sankarshan Thakur has been associate editor with The Telegraph and Indian Express and executive editor of Tehelka. He is the Telegraph's Delhi-based roving editor and has extensively Good evening, one and all. I welcome you all to this session. The topic for this session is A Country Gagged and Bound. As panelists, we have in our midst Mr. Arun Shourie, Mr. Girish Karnad, Ms. Shubha Mudgal, Mr. Shekhar Gupta, Mr. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi, Mr. Joe Cruz, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, Mr. Swapan Dasgupta, and Mr. Sankarshan Thakur. The moderator for this session is Arshia Sattar. Before we begin this session, the organizers would like to say a few words.
It's been a fantastic 3 days for this third edition of the Bangalore Literature Festival, and a few thank yous are in order. I'm going to keep it very short. First up, of course, Vikram, Shiny, and our families for having put through all the craziness of the past few days and months. The festival anchor, the Friends of BLF, a group of 50 plus individuals in the city that have come together and felt that it was absolutely important for them to keep this festival community funded. So a big thank you to the Friends of BLF. We've received some phenomenal support from the state government, the government of Karnataka, both the Department of Kannada and Culture, as well as the Department of Tourism. So a big thank you to them. For the venue and the hospitality, Crown Plaza, Bengaluru. In particular, I'd like to call out Mr. Kiran Shah from Crown Plaza and Velankani Park, as well as his team, for opening up what's otherwise a private space to all of us today. And this venue and all the hospitality that you see here is really all thanks to Kiran. So Kiran, I know you're somewhere in the audience. A big thank you to you. Of course, all of the authors and speakers who've come from far and wide, both within Bangalore, of course, from the state, the country, as well as from outside, traveled to be with us. And it's been enriching sessions with all of them, for all of us. So a big thank you to them. the volunteers from Symbiosis Institute who worked hard behind the scenes to make all of this happen. Thank you to them as well. Our board of advisors, led by Sri Chandrasekhar Kambar and Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, the press, electronic and print media, television, and very quickly, some of the key support that we've got from organizations like Harman, Indigo, Airtel, ITC, Microland, JSW, our event partner Redbox, Somi and his team, BMTC and the Bangalore International Airport for promotion, LCA, which is the Electronic City Industries Association, for again opening up Electronic City to us, Shankara Infrastructure, our festival bookstore partner, that's Oxford Bookstore, our PR partner Madison, Radio Indigo and Radio City, Suvarna News and Kannada Prabha. Some of the design that you see both on our website as well as the design that you see around here, Chug's Design, 2M Creative, Kumar La Noche, Nomad, Shrooms, Campus Diaries, Red Mist. Our programming partners, Alliance Francaise, Goethe Institute, the Max Muller Bhavan, the University of Queensland, the Australia Council for the Arts, ISME, SEMPRE, publishers, Alchemy, Amaryllis, Rolly Books, Aleph, Westland, Sahitya Academy, HarperCollins, Rupa, and Pratham Books. A few interesting things that I'd like to mention that have been different about the Bangalore Literature Festival this year. We pioneered the concept of a pitch session for aspiring authors to meet with literary agents and publishers. We call this LitMart. We had probably over 50 entries come through, and we shortlisted them to probably around 20, and we had a pitching session, and there were at least, I think, a handful of aspiring authors who made some really interesting pitches that got responses from the publishers saying, here, look, here's my card, please get back in touch with us. So I think that's been a good first, and we plan to keep that going. Bangalore, for for being known as the tech city, again, I think for the first ever time, we've had live streaming of the Bangalore Literature Festival, and we've gone to audiences of probably 500 plus across the world. And I think that's hopefully a trendsetter, and we want to keep that going as well. So that's been new. We've also tried to do a lot of our own publishing. A team led by Pranita, Charanya, and a few others have ensured that every single session that we see here has gotten published. A report has gotten out published live fairly quickly. Again, in BLF Reports and BLF Live, that's a first as well. So I thought I'd call out a few of those things up front, just trying to innovate and ensure that we're keeping the interest alive and ensuring that more and more audiences come to us. I'd also like to finally thank Mr. V. Ravichander. I know he's in the audience somewhere as well. From the bottom of our heart, I think a lot of what you see here, a lot of the friends of BLF, and for being not just our chief advisor, but at times even head cook and bottle washer, jumping in wherever there's challenges. I think Ravi's been a huge strength for all of us through the 3 editions of the Bangalore Literature Festival. I'd really like to give it to Ravi. A huge round of applause, please. It's been great for Vikram Shaini and myself to put this together, and we'll keep doing this. Hope to see more and more of you come back to us each year, and thank you very much.
I would now like to introduce our panelists. Author, journalist, and politician Arun Shourie has received several national and international awards, including the Padma Bhushan, the Magsaysay Award, the Dadabhai Navroji Award, the Astor Award, and the International Editor of the Year Award. He was a minister in the Government of India 1998 to 2004. His books include Does He Know a Mother's Heart?, How Suffering Refutes Religions, Worshipping False Gods, Falling Over Backwards, an essay against reservations and against judicial populism, The World of Fatwas, or the Sharia in Action, Harvesting Our Souls and Hinduism, Essence and Consequence. Playwright, writer, filmmaker, versatile actor, and screenwriter, Mr. Girish Karnad is a Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Nanpit awardee. He has won the Central Sangeet Natak Academy Award, Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay Award, and numerous national awards for his films. His plays include Haya Vandana, Ma Nishada, Yayati, Tuglak, Nagamandala, and Beda Karu on Toast, while his movies include Samskara, Manthan, Nishant, Swami, Umbarta, Kadalan, The Prince, Dor, Iqbal, and Ekta Tiger. A singer of Hindustani classical music, Miss Shubha Mudgal, also sings Khayal, Tumri, Dadra, pop, and fusion. She bagged the National Film Award for Best Non-Feature Film Music Direction for Amrit Beach in 1996, the Gold Plaque Award for Special Achievement in Music for a music in the film Dance of the Wind at the Chicago International Film Festival in 1998 and was awarded the Padma Shri in 2000. Mr. Shekhar Gupta's works include some of the most significant investigations in contemporary journalism in the region, from Indira Gandhi's Operation Blue Star to the disastrous Indian intervention in Sri Lanka, from tracking Pakistani's politics and military to the first Afghan jihad and its effect in Kashmir. A recipient of the Padma Bhushan in 2009, he is the author of Assam, A Valley Divided, and a monograph, India Redefines Its Role. Mr. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi is author of The Lost Flamingos of Bombay and The Last Song of Dusk. He has written for Time and the New York Times. Arun Cruz is a Tamil writer, novelist, and documentary film director. He won the Sahitya Academy Award in 2013 for his novel Korkai. Rajiv Malhotra is an Indian-American researcher, writer, and speaker on current affairs as they relate to civilizations, cross-cultural encounters, religion, and science. At the peak of his career, when he owned 20 companies in several countries, he took early retirement at age 44 to pursue philanthropy, research, and public service. He established Infinity Foundation for this purpose in 1994. He has authored many articles, provided strategic guidance to numerous organizations, and has over 300 video lectures available online. Founder director of Infinity Foundation in Princeton, he also serves as chairman of the board of governors of the Center for Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and is advisor to various organizations. Swapan Dasgupta has edited a collection of essays, Niraj Chaudhary, The First 100 Years. A co-participant of the weekly show, Politically Incorrect with Mani Shankar Iyer on NDTV, he has held senior editorial posts at The Statesman, The Daily Telegraph, The Times of India, The Indian Express, and India Today, where he was managing editor till 2003. Sankarshan Thakur has been associate editor with The Telegraph and Indian Express and executive editor of Tehelka. He is the Telegraph's Delhi-based roving editor and has extensively reported on Kashmir, Bihar, and socio-political conflict in the subcontinent. He has written Subaltan Sahib, Bihar and Making of Lalu Yadav, and Single Man, The Life and Times of Nitish Kumar of Bihar. Ms. Arshia Sattar is known for her translations of the Valmiki Ramayana and tales from the Katha Sarit Sagar. Her Lost Loves, Exploring Rama's Anguish, was shortlisted for the Crossword Nonfiction Award. Her latest book is The Mouse Merchant, Tales of Money in Ancient India. She teaches classical Indian literatures and is director of Sangam House, an international writers' residency program located outside Bangalore. Over to you, panelists.
Good evening. Is this working? Okay. Thank you for staying. This promises to be a very lively session, so I'm going to waste as little time as possible. Just by just for sake of introduction and to keep us sort of focused on the topic, the freedom of speech is always a problem with somebody else's speech, yeah? We have the right to say what we want to say, that is inalienable, but it bothers us when other people say what they want to say. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to speak for just 3 minutes, give us their opinion. Yes? Oh, okay. They will speak on why they believe freedom of speech is important or why they believe freedom of speech should be curtailed. I will ask them, please, to respect each other and to respect me. I am the chair. I do not want to channel Arnab Goswami, but I may have to. All of you have been with him, so you know what it's like to be beaten down. And of course, we will expect you all to join the conversation as well. I think because so many people are going to have so much to say, if you do want to make a comment or ask a question, please come over to the side, as you did with the previous panel here, in which Mr. Malhotra was speaking, so that we don't only deal with the people who are fortunate enough to sit right in front. So I'm going to ask Shubha Mudgal to speak first. She's the only other lady on this panel. I think she and I will use a couple of extra privileges just because we have to. So Shubha, would you like to get us started? And then I'll just go sort of randomly. Yeah? So Shubha, please.
Well, as a student of music, I think the one thing that I have learned is that diversity is one of the most significant aspects of Indian culture. And I think that the ability to express that freely must be maintained, unfortunately. Over the last decade or more, it does seem as if this freedom to say what you want to and to be the voice of dissent is coming under attack, and you only have to watch what all the trolls say, the terrible things that the trolls on the internet would want to do to you if you express a voice that is different, an opinion that is different from that of the majority. Unfortunately, even in the arts, this aspect of intolerance is becoming more and more apparent, and artists, as public figures, are becoming open to attack. I would also say that as a person who has, over the years, been quite frank and unabashed about voicing my opinions, I'm ready to face not personal attacks, but certainly for my opinion to be questioned. However, the edge of intolerance is becoming more and more apparent, and I think that in a country like India seems to be an unfortunate trend which needs to be discussed and where one needs to be quite open and unabashed about saying that this is not a welcome trend.
Mr. Shourie? I'm sure many of you know that Shubha recently was the recipient of some very unwanted attention at a temple in the US, right? Where somebody was verbally very, very aggressive with you about things that you had said in the past about our current Prime Minister. Would you like to just speak to that very quickly before we go onwards?
Well, really speaking, I think that was an incident that was blown out of proportion. Yes, it was ugly. It was ugly for me to go into a space that had been that was available on hire for the organizers. And so if there was any problem with my presence, that should have been addressed to the organizers of the event and not to me. But I was told that because of a stand that I had taken and because of a letter that I had signed in the past, saying that when people vote, they should certainly development is a big agenda, but certainly the diversity of our cultural fabric should also be a point in consideration when they cast their vote. For this reason, I was told that, that the association, the Hindu Temple Association, where I was performing, had received complaints that not only was I anti-Modi, but I was anti-Hindu and anti-national. The last two are accusations and allegations that I will absolutely not accept. And therefore I feel that and I feel that those kind, I don't think I'm ready to face that kind. I mean, I don't think it needs to be discussed, and I don't need people to say, oh, this is terrible. This is what I said. I signed on a paper which said that, and I'm willing to face that. But I think the idea that if you express in a democracy, if you say you would like to vote for someone and not for another one, to be termed anti-Hindu and anti-national and anti-democratic, I think that is the sad situation.
Thank you. Mr. Shourie, would you like to go next? Would you like to go next? Since you're busy making notes, would you like to be the next speaker?
Madam, I certainly feel that we are, not just because of the Constitution, but also because of the Constitution, among the freest countries in the world. And and among the freest societies in the world. There are always individuals who will take offense to anyone, but in general, not just because of the laws, I'll come to that, but because of our culture and because of what Shubhaji just said about the great diversity and size of our culture and of our country, freedom is sustained. Second is that our constitution limits the ability of the state to impose any restrictions. The state can restrict free speech only by what is called up to the extent of reasonable restrictions. And it is the courts which will decide what is reasonable and what is not. And second point is that the Indian Supreme Court, most high courts also, but certainly the Indian Supreme Court has been one of the staunchest defenders of free speech anywhere in the world. And third point is that every single government which has raised its hand against free speech, for instance against newspapers, has had that hand singed and has had to withdraw it. I do not know how many of you remember Mr. Jagannath Mishra's Bihar Press Bill. It had to be withdrawn. The same thing happened when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi tried to shut us up with the defamation bill in the center. The whole press stood up, and it's not the press which had to withdraw, the state had to withdraw what it was trying to do. And this happens not only because of the courts, but because the people feel that free speech is important for their own freedom and for what they want their life to be. So a government falls afoul of the people when it tries to do anything like this. Now, second point, I think, which comes to Shubhaji, there are 2 points. One is that if there are this social media business, this Twitter and Facebook, yes, sometimes license is used. But you see, we have to be forbearing, and we have to be thick-skinned, I really feel. Because if you say there should be restrictions on free speech in this loose media, then you will have to say who shall restrict. Then again you are giving power to the state. Therefore, the best thing is don't listen to it. I really don't know about this Twitter business. I don't have an account. Somebody has a false account in my name. I discovered from my nephew the other day that somebody has a Facebook page on my name. Somebody has a website on my name. I don't look at them. So please don't believe anything that you see in those pages as having come from me. And you know, this Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray used to say कि भाई रिमोट तो मेरे हाथ में है, तो अगर आपको कोई टेलीविजन वाला कोई ऐसी वाहियात बात कर रहा है which you don't like, just switch it off. Don't listen to them. And the other people should remember, those who are becoming aggressive in the name of this religion or that religion or this cause, or जैसे मोदी साहब के बारे में अपनी शुभा जी ने कहा, they must remember that it is best to stick to facts. If you adopt the same methods and the same intimidatory tactics of the others, then our fate will be also the same. So we should also just confine ourselves to facts. And the facts, as Rajiv Malhotra has demonstrated, as so many people have demonstrated, are on our side. So you don't have to start abusing. Because I have had Madhu Trehan and many other friends say that if they express any deviant opinion, how there is a sort of avalanche of abuse. That is certainly going to be counterproductive and will harm what you call the cause you want to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shourie. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to be a jack in the box, but I'll just stand. Thank you very much, Mr. Shourie. So far, we're 2 for 2. Everybody believes in freedom of speech. Shekhar Gupta, are you going to be contrarian, Mr. Walk the Talk, or are you going to stand up for freedom of speech as well?
It's impossible for me to be contrarian after Arun spoken. He's my guru. But having said that, I'll take the argument a step forward. Arun, you said facts are on our side. And the problem with freedom of speech right now is not from the state. It is not from politicians. It is from ourselves. That's because we are not becoming so self-obsessed and so self-indulgent that we want to be taken seriously. And frankly, we want to be taken more seriously than the other guys around us. So we find that everybody is shouting, and India is going through this period of shout rage. And sometimes you find volume goes up on your TV set without you touching the remote control, since you talked about the remote control. Because some square gets angry and it goes on. And moderators say, can I have a word in edgeways? Can I have a word in edgeways? But because it's entertainment now. So debate has now become entertainment. In that situation, it becomes very challenging to speak reason and to speak facts. Because the moment you speak reason and you speak facts, you are hit by something. And I'll give you examples. For example, what happened in Gujarat in the riots was a terrible thing. 2002 riots, it's inexcusable. It is still an unfinished story. Many of those cases are still in courts. We must get closure on those. But then to say that this was the Holocaust, in the paper that I edited, stepping into your oversized shoes, I banned the use of the expression Holocaust, Nazi, Hitler, Milosevic, Idi Amin. All these expressions were used freely about Narendra Modi by what was seen as the secular liberal crowd. So to pass the test of secularism and liberalism, you had to use those words about Modi. But if you didn't use those words about Modi, and if you were seen to be conversing with Modi, or if you were seen to be to have access to Modi, you were declared an outcast by the liberal crowd. That, oh, you are sucking up to so-and-so. So if you disagree with somebody, you cut them off. Now, the same liberal crowd now complains that the other side also attacks them. Today, if you say something mildly critical of Narendra Modi, you are not only anti-national, you are anti-Hindu, anti-national, you have no idea, and you must be corrupt, and you must be in the pay of Sonia Gandhi. Right? And this applies to other facts also. See, for example, we went through a phase of sort of popular collavery in our country. Everybody was angry. So every scandal had to have several zeros to it. So in fact, Satyanand Mishra, former CIC, reviewed Vinod Rai's book in India Today, and he said the numbers he quotes are usually found in astronomy. And he said the distance from Earth to the Sun is 186,000 miles, and that's the amount of money in crores that he says we lost on coal scam. The other one is 176,000. Now, it's a point I make all the time, and I've got into trouble for making this point, that 176,000 crores, the amount supposedly lost in 2G scam in 2007, was 4.71% of our GDP. It was $2 billion, more than twice as much as our defense budget for that year. Could the value of this much spectrum be that much? But the point is that, and even the CAG, to be fair to him, gave several figures. He said 35,000 crores to 176. Everybody chose 176. That's the folklore, that's the wisdom. If I stand up and say, no, it wasn't so, then I am with the corrupt. And I'm sold out. I'm a chamcha of Gandhi Nehru family. And I'm waiting for a Rajya Sabha seat. So I don't know how many times I've been promised one, but no one who had one has offered me one. Right? So that is where your freedom becomes a problem. And I'll just take half a second. See, freedom of expression, particularly in the media, is not guaranteed by our constitution or by any laws. It's guaranteed by convention. It's guaranteed by the way Supreme Court has interpreted Article 19 of our constitution. But when Mrs. Gandhi imposed the emergency in 1975, and she took away our freedoms, I was a journalism student then, when she took away our freedoms, then people of India said that she's done a terrible thing. And you know, people of India were not that literate then in 1975. And people said, we will never allow such a thing to happen again. So our freedoms, particularly in the media and in the public space, have been guaranteed by the social contract that came into being because of the emergency. Because people of India said, these guys must never be gagged, we need them. I would like to submit in great humility that over the past 5 years, our conduct in the media and for many public intellectuals has been so arrogant and so one-sided and so illiberal. We've become illiberal. In just wanting to be noticed or wanting to be either to have more Facebook likes or to have more followers on Twitter, we are all playing to our own audiences. So in the sense that we have become illiberal, now we can't complain about other people abusing us on Twitter. That doesn't matter on Twitter. Anybody can abuse, anybody call anybody anything. So this social contract now seems to be fraying. And you find, I found over 2 days, even in Bangalore, it's such a gentle city as Bangalore, one of the nicest places to go. In fact, I say that if like America, we gave names to our cities. New York is the Big Apple, Chicago is the Windy City. We'd call Bangalore the feel-good city. But even in this feel-good city and all the sessions that I have watched, the loudest cheers come when the media is attacked or made fun of. So it tells me that that social contract is now fraying, and we have to be very careful.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. You know, Delhi people are really not like us. I mean, they talk about Rajya Sabha seats and they roll off these numbers about zeros and lakhs and all of that. But it's very interesting to hear from Mr. Shourie and Mr. Gupta that for them, freedom of expression or freedom of speech rests primarily in the realm of the media. And I'd like Siddharth to speak next because in a very brief conversation that we had before we came up here to talk to you, you have a media story as well that affects that pertains directly to freedom of speech, right?
I might possibly be the youngest person on this panel, so I'm going to keep it short out of reverence to the brilliance of the people around me. I wanted very much to, I had made a promise to a friend. It's not a media story, it's a story about a friend. And this is somebody who lived through and survived one of the individuals in the Shakti Mills gang rape case that happened last year. And I promised them that I would come here and say this for them and with them. They had lived through so many abuses at the hands of the media, under the guise of freedom of speech, that all our conversations that followed through were essentially about how to recover from those violations. There were very few conversations that I ever had with them in which I tried to understand what it is that the assailants had done, because that was obvious. That was a wound that they knew how to address, and in some cases perhaps had healed from. But what does it mean when we say that the media violates these certain individuals? What is the metaphor that comes to mind? The metaphor for me is a friend of mine from Sweden who survived the tsunami. And she was in the ICU for 6 weeks and then went back to her apartment in Stockholm. Her mother joined her from the countryside and helped her recover. And over 8 months, she became as okay as somebody who has lost a spouse in the tsunami can be. But what set off the panic attacks for my friend was the water that would enter the washing machine. That gurgling sound would immediately set off memories that she had been able to ambush to a certain extent. The media is that water that goes through the washing machine. It is not the evil, but it represents the evil long after these people have been, disfigured by it. And that is essentially the promise that I made to my friend and said that I would come here and speak about them. So thank you.
Okay, many more journalists on the panel. I think I'm going to go Swapan Dasgupta, Mr. Dasgupta, to respond to media being the water in the washing machine that triggers discomfort for people who've been violated by the media.
Well, I don't really want to talk about the media per se, but media as a platform perhaps would be more instructive. I recall, I'll just give you a small anecdote as to why I'm not surprised that we are having this debate today. The date was the night of May 16th, 17th. It was the day of the counting of the general election. Now, I'd done a very exhausting day of television, and I had been requested, because I don't like appearing on BBC, partly because they don't pay. But at the request of a friend, I said, okay, it's an important enough event. And he said, look, it's, we need a Indian voice, authentic Indian voice. And so I was there. And my friend William Dalrymple, who's the Jaipur Literary Fest guru, he was the one who'd asked me. So as I went there on a link with London, and on the other end was Sir Anish Kapoor, now who, as we all know, is a very talented, accomplished artist, one of the best we have. Now, Anish Kapoor, who had been recorded earlier in the day, I suspect, before even the first result had come out, had preferred, this is not the India I grew up in. Of course, it's not the India anyone grew up in. I mean, it would be a terrible commentary on India if we grew up in the same India and remains that. But a certain attitude had already been defined, that we are going to see a change of government, and that government is going to bring about fascism, that government is going to bring about authoritarianism, so an a priori judgment had already been made. Now, when that doesn't really happen, what takes place? We take isolated incidents of loonies in society. And the society in a country like India has always had loonies of all shades. In the West, you have people who say the end of the world is nigh. Here you have their corresponding political counterparts. Talk about something or the other, detect conspiracies, etc. You highlight that and you say, that's the gravest problem facing society. Now, Shobhaji mentioned trolls. Now, this is an interesting phenomena. Trolls have been created by the social media. I don't know what they were prior to that. There were people who probably abused you from the side of, on the side of the road, if at all. But trolls are literate people who suffer from one, a lamentable lack of a vocabulary, which I think is their defining hallmark. But number two, they are people who feel somehow that their voice has been suppressed. Now, this may be imaginary, or this may be real. And most of the time, that anger is directed at the media and what they call MSM, mainstream media. That has become the latest demon. And I think the mainstream media has a lot to answer for. I can tell you, Shekhar was referring to outcasts. Now, I think I have lost my caste in that system a very long time ago. And well before Mr. Modi came to power. Because if you had the type of unpopular opinions which I articulated, unpopular not because they didn't have a following, weren't believed, but because they offended every tenet of the left liberal intelligentsia. Now, that sort of opinion. Now, if I was to narrate and list and make a dhobi list of each time what people said, what they said at this juncture, which seminar I was invited and then disinvited because it was paid for by the government, which minister rang up which editor to say, please withdraw his columns immediately. I'd be making a wonderful martyr of myself. A journalistic colleague of mine had his chowkidar. Somehow someone sort of said, hey, mat karo or something. He went on international media. Look at the harassment. My chowkidar has been harassed. Now, you want to become a Joan of Arc? Fine. You want to become a martyr? Fine. There are fissures in the system, but by and large, today in India, the main discourse is about the energy. Earlier in the afternoon, I was having this wonderful discussion with Mohandas Pai, one of the most passionate guys I've known. He was talking about Bangalore and he was hurling abuse one after the other at Delhi. And quite justified, in my view. But it was corresponded with the air of expectation, optimism that India needs to travel fast, and we aren't traveling fast because of this bloody thing in Delhi. Now, that's not freedom of expression hasn't been expressed. That's the main discourse. It's not about how many intellectuals have been deprived of seats in committees in some academy or something or the other, which is funded by the Ministry of Culture.
Mr. Dasgupta,
That is not the issue. So I don't believe that there is any serious threat to the freedom of expression. There can be potentially, but if that happens, society will respond adequately. Thank you.
Okay, this is getting to be a little bit of a boring debate because everybody believes in freedom of expression. Everybody believes that it is safe, that we really have nothing to worry about. We just watch ourselves, we watch each other, and it's going to be fine. So I'm going to ask Joe de Cruz to tell us now about when his work was pulled by a publishing house for the politics that he claimed.
Good evening, all of you. I think to be on the precisely, I can tell you very shortly about my experience, what I have faced. In a Facebook, I expressed my opinion about who is to be the prime ministerial candidate. There are various reasons, experiences. So I give my personal opinion and expressing my opinion on the Facebook. And I was called for a shipping conclave to attend in Bombay, and I was busy there, and my mobile is switched off for the sessions. There are hundreds of calls coming to my mobile. It is not the appreciations and accolades we get as writers, and also threats and abusements on the other side. And you see, my mobile was continuously ringing. Somebody has seen it, and then they told me, come please see what is happening. Maybe there is something personally, your family side, somebody is calling. So I could come and attend. They say, you are a writer. When you are a writer, how can you support Hindutva? What is this? I was asking them, what is the meaning of Hindutva? I really don't understand what is Hindutva. In a particular stand, in a particular situations, our opinions are changing, the trends are changing. What is the need of this hour today? Today, India needed something, and that is expressed by poor Joe de Cruz. That's all. It is for you to take it or leave it. I don't ask you, you take it. No, I don't command you. I have put my opinion in my site. That's all. So for that, how many threatening calls? And what has happened to the book which has to be translated? All that is a story which has the entire world knows. But it's something like, as a writer, as a citizen of India, as a son of Bharata Mata, what is need of the hour is only expressed. So I think we have got freedom, we have got liberty in 1947 itself. And today, it's shame for us to, till today, in this evening, we are talking about the freedom of speech. What do you mean by freedom of speech? I want to express myself and I am not able to express. You are a writer. I am a writer does not mean I belong to a particular group. And if you take me to a particular group, I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't want to belong to a particular group. And I am expressing, I am the soul of the lower rung of the people, and I want to become a writer only for that. And expressing the need of the people. I am expressing the situation of the people. That is all. And if you categorize me, you push me to a particular groupism, I am not for that. And then on the other side, you have the other thing, and it's, you should be a leftist or a Hindutva. Don't you have anything in between? And I want to stand in between, that as a soul which knows what is the feeling of the people of India, what is the need of the people of India, what is the requirement of the whole nation, what is the, we need progress. That is the responsibility of people. That is the responsibility of the readers. That is the responsibility of a writer like us. And we have to transfer the message that the past experiences and our messages to the next generation. And I have greater responsibility. Let me be and let me enjoy with my responsibility. Thank you.
Very passionate plea for personal freedom of expression. I mean, I think we're quite aware that our press freedoms are safe, but it's our personal freedoms that seem to be under threat. Mr. Thakur, would you like to address that? You ready?
First of all, my apologies, I came late. I was finishing up another panel on Kashmir. And if you're wondering whether we are being gagged or bound, you should have been there, because there were two tents divided this way and that way, and everybody was ready to leap onto the panel. In such a loud country, how do you even imagine you will be bound and gagged? It's been tried. we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it, and you wouldn't be sitting here listening to it if we were bound and gagged. I mean, people have tried, but they have failed, as Shekhar was saying. I also come across this fascism thing very often. We have become a fascist country. I said, in a fascist country, you're not allowed to say that. You'll be shot. Before you announce we are living in a fascism, you won't be able to pronounce that word. So there we are. I mean, I'm going to have to disappoint you. I am not going to occupy a contrarian space here. I think the freedoms of all of us, not just the media, I think the freedom to speak and to act belongs to all of us. And we need to be vigilant and protect it. I don't see, frankly, a threat to it. And when it comes, I'm confident it will be defeated. That's all I have to say.
Optimistic words. Second to last, the hero of the day, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, who gets claps every time he stands up.
Well, I don't think anyone would promote that anything other than freedom of speech. I would think everyone would want freedom of speech, and certainly that's what the panel is saying. It's a question of interpreting what we mean by that. So for example, if someone, as the first speaker said, has the right to criticize Modi, which I agree, but then the people of a temple uninvite her, that too is their freedom. Because a temple or any house of worship in the United States is a private space run by certain people who organize it. And like you don't have to invite me to dinner or uninvite me to dinner to your house, it's a private matter. That is your freedom. Similarly, in a house of worship, if they say because of your views we don't invite you, you're exercising your views, they're exercising their views. So you also have to consider that a lot of this criticism that comes from people is not that they are denying you your freedom, but that they are exercising their freedom. This is an important point. Personally, I believe that there should be maximum freedom, but it should be equally applied. It should not be that some tradition is guilty and they are charged with being sort of fascist or whatever words, and therefore different rules apply for them. So when the issue of banning books comes up, we had banning of Da Vinci Code because it hurt Christians, a banning of satanic verses because it hurt Muslims, and some recent bannings because it hurt Hindus. I'm for a level playing field. Either you stop all bannings, and I'm for that actually, and then if religious sentiments are hurt, so be it. The question then comes, when does it become hate speech? Because that is bad, because it can incite violence and so on. When does the freedom to really attack somebody's religion go too far and turn into hate speech? And that, I think, is an important discussion that should be happening. What are the criteria by which you think it may have gone too far? Whatever the answer may be, it should not be different for different religions. And I think the standards the media has applied have been different, because the liberal left-wing media has given a different thing. My final comment is that the internet is here to stay, whether you like it or not. And there is the old school being disrupted by the new technology. This happened every time media changed. When radio was invented, if you look at the history of radio, there were all kinds of upheavals because people could say all sorts of things. Then when television was invented, the radio people were threatened. Then when cable TV was invented, cable TV was full of all kind of radical sort of strange things that the conventional broadcast TV didn't accept, and so on. So each time a new technology and a new media comes, it disrupts the power structure of the very arrogant, hegemonic, big bossy people who run the old media, and therefore they feel threatened because now there is voices that don't listen to them but talk back. So in that regard, I agreed with what Shekhar said, that there has also been the arrogance of media to call all kinds of names to whoever they want. But when they get it back, when people call them similar things, then they say, oh, I'm being attacked, and so on and so forth. So the question is, whose freedom is more important? If your freedom is important, and because you feel that you are privileged people, you are intelligent people, your aesthetics is good, your manners is good, you have the right subject matter, and so on, and you should not be blocked, well, the average person in this day and age, however rough, however unsophisticated you may think him to be, however, whatever vocabulary he may have, the fact is that is the age we are in, and you might as well accept it and learn to live with it, because there is no way you're going to silence that.
Yes, I know people are dying to respond, and I'm going to give you a chance to do that, especially to the jibe about the liberal left media
exactly.
being unequal. One second, Mr. Thakur. Let Mr. Karnad. Okay, go for it.
I came late, so I think this coupling of liberal left wing is by design, and I have problems with this coupling. Two, why is it bad to be liberal? I don't understand. Why is liberalism a bad word? Since when did it become a bad word to be accepted? Since when did liberalism become a bad word? I don't understand this. I really don't understand.
Why is left a bad word? You might ask the same question.
Exactly.
As well.
Why is the left a right bad word? Can I respond?
Please. Yeah.
Hinduism is the most liberal religion because it liberates you from all kinds of your ego. So it's a well, may I say? So therefore, liberalism is a good thing. And I don't think Hinduism should be called right-wing, because it's also got a lot of qualities of egalitarianism and what you would call left. So it is neither left nor right. So if you want to talk about the jargon, it is a certain segment of Indian media who have themselves labeled themselves as liberal left. It is not somebody else who called it. They have given themselves the name. And that is who we are talking about.
Okay.
Sorry, can we come in? We can't make up.
Shubha, Mudgal, you had wanted to
Yeah,
respond?
I just wanted to say that I agree that if I have the right to say that I am anti-Modi, then the person in the temple has a right to say that he is pro-Modi. But I never asked to be in the temple. It was an organization which paid money to hire a venue for a concert that I was going to perform. If they had a problem with that, that problem should have been addressed with the organization, not by telling me that I also feel that I do not need to wear my religion on my sleeve and declare to everybody that I am Hindu, or I am, I don't think that is required, particularly not in India.
Mr. Karnad, our very own, the last word, please. Well, the last word of the panel, not the last word of the discussion. Please do. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I share one quality with Mr. I just blanked out. No, Mr. Shourie, is that I don't have Twitter, I don't have, all this Facebook and all that sort of thing. I agree that we are the freest of the society. The only thing I have fight or quarrel I have with Mr. Shourie is that, yes, there are facts and facts. But Mr. Shourie, as someone who's in the business, you know, there are ways of using facts. You can use facts, you can project certain facts, and you cannot project certain facts. And ultimately, the question is, a person who's in a responsible position, how does he project his facts, and what kind of truth does he want to give to the people? this is where the laws and the constitution doesn't come in. This is where the attitude of the people in power comes in. And here I'll only narrate one small story, an event which relates to Mr. Shourie himself, so he can explicate on it. He was talking about, he was with Mr. Vajpayee when the Gujarat riots were taking place, and he said he was with Vajpayee. Vajpayee was very, very upset about what was happening, and Mr. Shourie said, I was very upset about how upset the Prime Minister was. I was not concerned with what was happening in Gujarat. You see, ultimately, this is a man who modulates public opinion, and ultimately what worried him at that moment is what the Prime Minister thought rather than what was happening to the people of Gujarat. Now, this is from his own mouth, actually, and perhaps he has another interpretation. The point is not of what kind of constitution we have. It is not a question of what is Hinduism. The point is, in our society, there's an atmosphere of fear. There is an atmosphere of fear which you are at the grassroots level, you can feel it. It's not just Wendy's book that you have to think of, that someone like Dinanath Batara can go up and actually force penguins to pulp it. It's Oxford University Press, a press I worked for, which actually withdrew Ramanujan's articles because they were afraid of what was going to happen next, how the laws were going to be used. Now here we are talking of two of the most powerful publishing firms in India. What happens to the people at the bottom? We know Anand Patwardhan found a group which sang of revolution. They only sang of revolution, a Dalit group in Bombay. Now they're in prison because they're against India, because they're against Indian democracy. And this ultimately is what we have to face. The point is the responsibility of people in power of creating an atmosphere where anyone can speak what they say. We have laws here like 295A. You just have to read a book and you have to say, this has hurt my sentiments. And this is regularly used. It's not only used against Wendy Hellier. It's been used in Kannada. You know, a Dalit wrote a novel in which he made a pun on the name of Ganesha. Immediately the police arrested him. Of course, fortunately, we have a Congress party here, and we went and we protested, and he was not served. But let me tell you that please don't think that the ordinary people of India have the same rights that you have, or the freedom of that you have. You are in a position where you can fight for it. But there are people who can't. And we have to create a situation where they can stand up and say what they like. And we have to worry whether that is a situation that happens or not. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
I'm going to let Mr. Shourie respond, but also I'd like to remind you all that this is precisely what we're here for, to listen to each other, yes? To explore freedoms of speech. So if you don't like what somebody's saying, maybe you should close your ears and let people who want to hear that person hear that person.
Mr. Karnad is somebody we all respect so much, and I'm not quite sure that I won't respond to the fact that he was saying about what upset me about the Gujarat riots and so on. If you want a discussion on that, I would love to engage in this. But the point about facts was actually an advice to those who I feel today are becoming abusive rather than becoming sticking to facts. The persons who would attack something that, let's say, Ms. Shubha Mudgal would say, I was talking about them, that please stick to facts. And when you want to talk about Gujarat riots or Mr. Vajpayee's reaction and what my reaction, and actually probably you have just pulled out something from selective memory from an interview that Shekhar Gupta had with me and what I had said in response. Sir, I think the question about facts is, we should present facts as we see them. Rajiv Malhotra sees them in one way, I see them in one way, Romila Thakur sees them in some other particular way. We should present the facts after due research as the case for the prosecution. And the point about, not about this on the one hand, but on the other, after all, for 40, 50 years, so this left liberal business, the left had a particular presentation about history. Over the last 10, 20 years, other voices have come up which have questioned the facts on which they built up that narrative. So that is perfectly fine. They presented a case for the prosecution, we are presenting another case for the prosecution, and over time this thing will sort itself out. As far as causing offense, all reform offends. When somebody must have believed in Sati, when Raja Ram Mohan Roy or others combated it and wrote against it, somebody must have felt offended. And our courts have held that offense is not, it's the job of the state to prevent the speech of somebody from being muzzled just because somebody else says he is taking offense. We should stick by that principle. If I may, instead of responding to individuals, if I may just slightly turn the discussion to what I think are the remedies to the concerns which have been expressed by some persons. So the first is, as I mentioned to you, have a thick skin. Second is, as Swapan was also saying, you just pick up one person who's speaking and say that is what is making India now illiberal and intolerant. Arey yaar, wo hai kaun? Uske kitni? Second point thing is, therefore, have some contempt for these fellows who shout and scream and from any side. A slight contempt and a thicker skin. I'll give you an example. If I may invoke the name of the president, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. You see, I remember some debate in the Rajya Sabha on some WTO thing, and opposition people were shouting, maybe I was also in the opposition at that time, shouting, no, you are selling the sovereignty of India to this, mortgaging the sovereignty of India to the WTO. He got up and said that I don't know how many, I have lost count of the number of times I have sold the sovereignty of India. Because every time I go and sign an agreement, you people shout. So that is the way, slight contempt for what is being said in this and not. So there is a provision which is in the cases that were mentioned of two ladies who have been imprisoned or something. There is a provision in this, with the law dealing with the internet on 66A. That should certainly be struck down because it is being used. That's it. Yeah. No, because it is being misused at a lower level. I'll tell you why. Because no restriction can supersede what is provided in the Constitution and what has been upheld by the Supreme Court in a series of judgments over 65 years. So how that, just because, supposing I defame somebody, you can't arrest me, you please take me to court for defamation. If I incite violence, then of course you must ban it, but incitement is not just causing offense. People take offense at anything. Third thing is, there is a remedy. If you feel that somebody's voice has been suppressed or somebody said something and that has been suppressed, the best remedy today is provided, that is, everybody should repeat it. Then against how many will the state move? And the internet provides you that, that kind of facility. And I think as far as the media is concerned, sir, we should be so manifestly in the interest of the people that when the state raises a hand against us, the people rise against the state. I remember this in the case of the Indian Express under Mr. Ramnath Goenka. People, every time during this Bofors business, every time Rajiv Gandhi on Gurumurthy's count had 326 inquiries, cases, raids, all sorts of things against us. But each time that happened, we put it as a box item on the front page. And our circulation rose. And I thereby had once published a cartoon on the front page. Rajiv Gandhi is sitting on one of our broken desks. And there is this banner behind him called the Indian Express. और उनके आगे वो board लगा हुआ छोटा सा circulation manager. मगर and my final suggestion is really that do not believe everything you read on this Twitter business or Facebook or internet about anybody. Try and verify the facts for yourself about individuals. I know that my own friends have been abused and all sorts of things were written about them. Just because you can't imagine that he's taking money, Shekhar was narrating some of these, American se le raha hai, falane se le raha hai, falani government ne usko ye diya hai, wo diya hai. Don't believe it. But more important for each one of us is, if we honor that person, if we know that he's a person of integrity, please reach out to him, touch him, and say, we are with you. That's what we don't do. We should stand by the persons in this way. And therefore, sir, these very simple remedies will deal with the kinds of threats which everybody seems to think that the whole ocean is changing. Arey bhaiya, India is an ocean. ये पत्थर वत्थर जो लोग फेंकते हैं उसके बीच में it absorbs them very easily. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, so I think all our fears and the threats to our person and to our ways of thought are, if we believe Mr. Shourie, are going to be addressed simply by reaching out to each other and saying, hey bro, I trust you. I wish we would do that. But I am also, yes, please. I was just going to say, I'm going to come back to the panel for a set of responses if they so desire. And then please join us with your comments and your questions. Let me just tell you how this is going to work. Just sort of line up on that side so that the mic will come to you and I can see you. Because otherwise only the people in the front get to be noticed and get the microphone. So I'm going to go back to the panel briefly and then we'll invite you to join us.
Well, I think, is it working? No, okay. Do you know what happens according to PAC 295A? You go to the police and you say, this book has hurt my sentiment, and the police is obliged to arrest you. It's obliged to arrest you. If you are not arrested, the police officer gets into trouble. And this law has been there since before emergency, I think. The point is not just to say that we should fight the laws. The point is, those people who were in power, has Mr. Shourie himself, who was in power, has ever tried to change this law? Have you ever attempted this? The point is, it's no use saying we're a great democracy, we have great facts. The point is,
I don't remember anyone, sir. I don't remember anyone being arrested in this way. I have written books which have offended people. I can tell you, Mr. Karnad, I was beaten up twice for one of the books which I was signing today, twice, in large gatherings. Once in a case when there were more than 10,000 people in Pune, not one paper wrote about it. But I persisted with the book. So what is the problem?
The problem is to change the law.
Let us see what 295A is. I frankly, if anybody has the IPC, it will be good to see it. But
okay.
But in the banning of books, could I just mention one thing? In the banning of books, I have seen, by writing against the bans of Ram Swarup's book on understanding Islam through Hadith, it was banned. I wrote against it. Do you know what the judgments of the courts are? Even in regard to Godse's brother's book on justifying the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, the court said it should not be banned. And he gave 25 reasons for that. Now, if that is the case, how can other books be banned? In Jaswant Singh's case, when the book on Jinnah was banned, my friend, though it was banned by probably some action of the Gujarat government, Mr. Modi was heading it. I wrote about it. We went to Mr. Nariman with Jaswant Singh and I went. Writs were prepared and the ban was struck down It didn't even have to come to the Supreme Court. It was struck down in the High Court of Gujarat.
I'm going to have to stop this schoolyard fight between Mr. Karnad and Mr.
May I
Shourie.
just-
Both of you, sit down. Thank you very much. Other people need to speak.
May I just intervene?
Thank you.
May I just intervene? I think on
Are
a
you
slightly...
continuing? No, 1 minute. Are you continuing the same fight? Please don't.
No, I'm
Yeah?
not. I'm
Okay.
talking
All
about
right.
something else,
All right.
if I may.
Yeah, please.
I think, there was a very, very important point which Joe made, which hasn't been really taken up. And I think half of the problem today lies with the type of publishing industry we have in this country. I'm glad to say it in the to say it. Number one, the biggest problem is they don't pay royalties. The biggest problem. Number two, they are so fickle and go by fashion or by pressure. In the case of Joe, it was a question of why should his novels be determined by his voting intention? Why should we judge the quality of music produced by Shubha Mudgal because of her voting intention? But it was done. Number two, it was done in the case of Wendy Doniger issue. There was no ban. Exactly. It was a unilateral decision, a scary poo decision by Penguin India, which gives the most loftiest sort of sermons on these things. So it's the publishing industry which hasn't, for instance, dared to publish anything by Taslima Nasreen in Bengali. So it's they who need to introspect how much of a threat to India's pluralism, India's diversity, India's thing, they have been responsible for.
Thank you, Mr. Dasgupta. I think that was a very timely reminder. I think we all agree that there's nothing particularly wrong with the laws in our country, but there's something very wrong with our fear of the law not being enforced or not being enforced soon enough to make a difference. But I know that Shubha Mudgal had wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, I was just saying that, fortunately for me, I have several layers of fat, so developing a thick skin is not really a problem. But really speaking, and I think, yes, social media, internet is very important in today's day and age, and I believe that people must, I think it's empowering because people can express themselves, but I also feel that as a concerned citizen, one must note the kind of hatred, the kind of barbarism, and the kind of violence expressed very often. And as in a democracy, if all of you feel that, no, this is not a matter of concern, we do not need to see where all of this is coming from, fine, it's a democratic country, fine, that's what, if everyone feels, fine, that's the way it will go. But I feel that these are indications of the kind of extreme hatred, and this is not about the incident that occurred with me, which I feel is too little to be talked about, really. But in general, that voice of intolerance, hatred, and barbarism must be noted.
Mr. Gupta, yes?
In fact, I think maybe I got misunderstood a bit. I did not say there is no threat to freedom of expression. I said threat comes from within us. It doesn't come from the establishment or the state. Because we've got too many complicated vested interests, and I don't think we are showing the right kind of spine. Look at the way, say, Narendra Modi's visit to New York is being covered on your TV screens, right? It's one thing to say Narendra Modi's policy is right or wrong, or whether he got the right deal or not. You had a well-known anchor in English on a well-known English channel described the day before yesterday, before Mr. Modi had arrived in New York, said Mr. Modi is like Moses leading his people to the promised land. Now, I mean, are we 1.26 billion Jews? Has Mr. Modi parted the Atlantic Ocean? I think Mr. Modi will be embarrassed by this, right? And frankly, all the Hindutva wala should be embarrassed by this. But nobody has told that anchor at that channel to do this. I think people are doing also a lot of this stuff to see how to play it with the gallery. How does it work? And everybody is figuring this out. And I'll take half a minute, since I work in the media. Different sections of our society and establishment are now figuring this weakness. First of all, it was found out by film stars, who said anybody who's even mildly critical of me will never get an interview with me, right? Then film star said, all right, even if I give interviews to friendly people, I will only give them when my film is coming out, and I will tell them what questions to ask. So when Mardani is about to be released, you will find Rani Mukherjee sometimes on 5 channels at the same time, each one saying exclusive, right? And each one is asking her the same soft questions, right? And it goes on like that. The second category to have figured this were cricketers. See how few cricketers now are interviewed on TV, except when they are promoting a product or a brand or maybe a press conference after. Because they, in any case, they will never talk to somebody who they think has been even mildly critical of them. That is the lesson now that the political class has learned. And don't just blame Modi for denying access. Look, 10 years of UPA, how much access did the media have to the 2 Gandhis and to Dr. Manmohan Singh? How much? We had 0 access. I mean, if you knew somebody, you could go and chat with them. Every chat was off the record. The Gandhis rarely held a press conference. Dr. Singh rarely held a press conference. So 3 key figures in the UPA government for 10 years were the most silent ever. Now, I have many arguments with Modi, but at least he speaks in public, he tweets, you know his views. And I think as far as other access is concerned, it's about the same as the previous government. So this denial of access as a weapon, establishment has now begun to use. It's for those who are victims of it now to respond to this.
So the silences are actually growing, but they're growing because of us and our fears or our new ways of dealing with new media. Many people need to respond. I'm going to go with Jody Cruz first, then Mr. Malhotra, and then Siddharth.
See, there are different opinions. Let the opinion come, not as vindictive now. Let it not become a vindictive level. And as far as Mr. Shekhar, what is this? Yeah. You're saying Modi may not like being called, being termed as Mose. Being a Hindu, he will love to be called as a Mose because Hindu is a maturity. And it will accept Allah, Jesus, or Rama, anybody for that matter. Thank you.
Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, you had a response?
Yeah. I think what we have is different gatekeepers, each controlling their fiefdom or their channel of information flow, exercising their discretion and their freedom to decide who gets on and who doesn't get on. So I as a person may feel that my freedom is being curtailed if the TV don't include me and they have got the same 20 people all the time, every channel got the same 20 voices, and yet they have a point that it's their freedom to decide to include or not include. Now, by the same token, if the media have that freedom, so do the publishing houses have the freedom to decide that in their best business interest, they will not continue a certain book, they will stop it because they make a business judgment that their clientele will not like it, maybe it'll be bad for their business, whatever it is. They certainly have the right to make a business decision for themselves as much as the TV or newspapers have a right to decide which book they will review, which book they will not review, which one they will interview, who they will not interview. And by the same token, a temple has a right to say, for whatever reason, without having to justify it, to say, okay, we won't invite this person for whatever reason. So if we are talking about the freedom of one particular kind of gatekeeper, then we cannot be complaining that the other gatekeeper has kind of damaged their freedom. Either there has to be some sort of a mechanism which is not practical, that you've got to give everybody the right, but you cannot have everybody on TV, everybody in the newspaper, or you have to give the discretion to whoever happens to be the gatekeeper. So the only non-gatekeeper media is the internet. Otherwise, by very nature, you have more people who want to get in and less space available. Somebody has to choose in their hours, so many hours of TV or so many words of newspaper capacity. They have to choose less than 1% of what's available to be accommodated. So somebody is making a value judgment which is error prone, which is subject to bias. Everybody's like that. If I were in those shoes, I too would be exerting my own opinion. The only open with no capacity limit where you can have as much as you want and therefore you don't have gatekeepers is actually the internet. So really this issue is an internet versus old media issue.
Okay, thank you. Siddharth, you wanted to add something
As
to that?
I think the token person here who is a big believer in Facebook and Twitter.
No, I'm a believer in Facebook.
Okay, well, join the club.
Thank you.
What I wanted to say is that it's been one force that's allowed for the power, the balance of power to change. It's been able to take it away from the media, who turned around and said, we exercise freedom of speech, and therefore we can say this. I'm actually waiting a few years down the road when the heads of media houses are going to be put under the same scrutiny that they impose onto other people. Therefore, when the Times of India takes certain kinds of liberties in writing about women and women's bodies, I would be very interested in seeing what it is that the owner of the Times of India is doing at the Bombay Times party, and actually sort of sharing those photographs on social media. Well, both. So it's very important that that balance of power shifts, and that anybody over here is should be aware that they are agents of change. They're sitting there with their phones, and they have the power to say, if you can do this, I can set the record straight, and they must.
All right, so we're going to change the balance of power for this evening. Would you all like to join the conversation? If you do, microphones on this side, please. Please keep your comments as short as possible. Not that our panelists have been very good about that, but we can be agents of change and be short and to the point. So, Mike. There's no mic? No, but the problem is that other people need to hear you too.
I would like to ask two questions. The freedom of expressions is not still...
Sorry, just a moment.
And Dr. Lakshmi Priya.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm saying, who are you asking the question to? Yeah.
No, it's common. Anybody can answer, no problem.
Okay.
Mr. Karnad, sir. Freedom of expression is not highly motivated in the literature side. When Red Sardi was banned, that's one thing. The other thing is that in the visual literature, I mean, many films we are making in the expression of personal impression, like a caste, the religion-wise, or the women empowerment, like Fire movie came. But why such kind of things were banned? The freedom of expression was not highly motivated, either the personal view or the media point of view. The media was highly, giving criticized kind of thing.
See, you must remember, You must remember that films are one of the few media where there is a censorship board which says we will ban this film. So the whole question of banning comes up. That's fair enough. Then you can fight it out. Samskara, written by Ananthamurthy, in whose name we're meeting here today, was banned, and we fought it up to the ministry, and said we got it released. Whether today Samskara, the novel, could have been released is open to question, since now we have, as I said, new laws which were introduced by Mrs. Gandhi in 259A and others just before the emergency. The question is where there is no censorship exists, and where the atmosphere of fear works, where people self-censor. Now, self-censoring is not, is not a voluntary thing. You force them into it. Penguins fought for 5 years to kept Wendy's thing in the market. Ultimately, they decided they couldn't afford the cost. Or the attacks on the OUP withdrew their books because they were afraid of their staff being attacked. Now, this is the atmosphere about which I'm talking, and which needs to be mended. Otherwise, there's talking of freedom of expression. It's just nonsense, actually.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please.
Sorry, there's a sense I got that there was sort of consensus, or not a consensus, but at least a point where the law seems to not be much of a problem, and that it is a reaction to the law that seems to be the issue. And I just want to, just add a sort of corrective from my end to that, because I think that the law very much is an issue. Just 4 short points. Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code, sedition, whoever incites disaffection against the state can be subject to imprisonment for 10 years to life imprisonment. What is disaffection? Nobody knows. So that's one point. 2, the law of obscenity, section 292. Whoever publishes material that tends to incite depravity or corruption. What does that mean? Again, we don't really know, but this is the law that has allowed Lady Chatterley's Lover, one of D.H. Lawrence's classic novels, to continue to be a banned novel in this country, decades after millions worldwide have been, depraved and corrupted by this book. A third law, take the law of hate speech. Section 153A of the Indian Penal Code. Now, this law, criminalizes you for inciting religious hatred between communities. M.F. Hussain was chased out of this country because more than 60 cases were filed against him under this section, right, for a painting of the country that represented the country as a woman. Just a fourth example, defamation. The law of defamation, section 499 of the Indian Penal Code, right? Whoever makes a speech that tends to lower the reputation of an individual, 2 years of imprisonment. And there's no cap on the amount of compensation that you can be asked for. So the Indian Institute of Planning and Management has in fact made a career out of this. In the years 2005, 2007, 2009, 2011, they filed cases against different individuals across the country for damages ranging from 25 lakhs to 50 crores for publishing exposés. These are facts, Mr. Shourie, facts about the institute, the claims that it was making, the fact that the advertisements did not correspond to what the institute was actually offering. The latest of these was in 2011. Siddharth wrote an article in Caravan magazine, which IIPM first got retracted. They filed a case for 50 lakh rupees against him in the district court of Silchar in Assam, not in Delhi, where Siddharth lived, not in Delhi, where the headquarters were, but in Silchar, Assam, only so that they could make it as inconvenient as possible for him to access the legal process. This is what's happening. This is what our laws are. So let's not, confound ourselves or confuse ourselves about the situation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shourie.
I think that's just to get the facts straight. First is
facts.
in the case of this IIPM, the person who's done the maximum work to expose them is a friend of mine, a equity person, Mahesh Sharma, in Careers 360. He has pursued them diligently. Because of his pursuit, the lies of this institution have been brought into the open. And as you know, the Delhi High Court has just given a judgment 4 days ago banning IIPM from advertising itself as a business management school. He has persevered with it for 10 years. No defamation case. अरे ये सिलचर में केस होता है. मैं आपको खुद एग्जांपल बतलाता हूँ कि I wrote something in an article about advocates. So how they are always intercessors between judges and criminals, and how the best lawyers are available to the greatest criminals. So in Silchar, it so happens, some advocates filed a case against me. He has defamed us. Now, it is against the law, but anyhow, I dutifully went to Silchar. So I reached there. तो Silchar जाना चाहिए. तो मैजिस्ट्रेट कहता अरे आप आ गए भाई पहले तो चाय पीजिए. So हमें चाय दी गई. फिर उन्होंने कहा कि साहब पहले सब बाहर आओ, सारा बाहर वाले लोग आए, फोटो खिंचवाते. फोटो खिंचवाई गई. फिर उसने कहा जी साहब आप हमें लेक्चर दीजिए. So I addressed the bar of Silchar. जाना चाहिए सिलचर, इतनी क्या बात है. So on IIPM, I think you are probably not. The defamation law in India this clause drafted by Macaulay is an absolutely excellent clause, and it gives you all the protection you need. The problem with this law is it's the courts, that a case takes 12 years, and therefore we are not able to file cases. And for whenever we are defamed. But on the question of sedition, the fact of the matter is, can you please tell me which is the newspaper or the journalist or the writer who has been charged under sedition law in the last 65 years?
Okay, that's a rhetorical question. Please don't answer it. Yeah? Okay.
Okay, no, just one point. Mr. Shourie.
It's a ghost that you are imagining.
Shourie.
Similarly, sir, there are secessionist movements in India. I mean, you can't say that Bhindranwala should be able to say that, yes, breaking India is his fundamental right. So there has to be a sedition law.
I think we can just take this as a difference of opinion.
I think
Thank you very much for making your point. Thank you for making
I'll
yours,
just
Mr.
take this forward a little bit. As somebody who's been a journalist for 37 years now, Indian defamation law is among the most liberal. In fact, it's much too heavily weighed in favor of the accused. Right? Anybody who can complain about the law being unfair, it's the person who's been defamed. I think this is a hawa. If you talk about IIPM's power was not the law of sedition, law of defamation. Defamation, all of us deal with. I think I'm in bail in, I think at last count 11 or 12 cases of defamation. It's an inconvenience. You have to go thrice to court, once to show your face, second to be read your charges, third time to enter your plea and say I'm not guilty. That's all. After that, nothing happens. No, hang on. So you said 2 years. In the history of Indian journalism, in the last 60 years, only 2 or 3 journalists have been given that sentence, and those have also not yet been sent to jail. 2 of them have worked with us. Javed Laik is one. आपके टाइम में काम करता था एक्सप्रेस में. Jagmohan filed a case against him on those emergency and won the case. So he carries a 2-year sentence, but it has not been enforced yet. Raman Kripal, who now works for DNA, he used to work a Pioneer. A police officer filed a case against him. He's got a jail sentence, 2 years, but has not been enforced, right? So it's not as if jail awaits us. There is harassment, but if you are in public domain, you have to deal with it. You go wherever. How does it matter? I went to Trivandrum so many times in a so-called ISRO spy case of 1993, which turned out to be no spy case. It was fully fabricated against some ISRO scientists and 2 Maldivian women. But it was a badge of courage, so that doesn't matter. IIPM's power was not defamation. IIPM's power was money and advertising.
Okay, I'm going to move the discussion along,
look at the papers and media organizations which were supporting them. Nevertheless, they were as advertisers as big as Subroto Roy Sahara. Full pages in certain newspapers, and if you wrote against them, they denied you advertising.
Because there is sedition.
No. You can, no, but they can only file cases. Anybody can file cases, no problem. Okay. And
excuse me.
No, hang on.
Okay, another schoolyard fight,
I think I have to clarify this.
Other people need to speak
Somebody
also.
sending you a notice means nothing, right? Going to court is a much more...
the young gentleman there with the mic, would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Let me say something. Now you tell me, public opinion in this country, which was fully with Arvind Kejriwal and Anna Hazare when the movement was on, did anybody protest that the owner of IIPM went on his stage and walked up and down with his ponytail and a microphone giving a speech, and every TV channel showed it live?
Okay, I think the contract here was that you respect the chair, Mr. Gupta. Thank you so much. Next question, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, little boy.
Good evening. My question is to everyone. I have been listening to the session and enjoying, but you all have been agreeing on something and not agreeing on something, fighting.
That's the point.
So, what should I take home or conclude from this decision?
Gentleman and lady, I think you have something to answer for. All he saw was fighting. Joe, would you like to respond? Yeah.
Don't get worried, don't get disturbed with all these people here. Be a human, that's all. Be a human, that's all. Okay. Carry that message.
Don't be like us, I think is the short answer. Next. I think you've already asked a question. No, earlier this evening. No? Okay.
My question is to Girish sir, and I just want to have some little focus from Sorry sir also. So like sir, you came and talked about section 295 and all this, how this exists and creating a lot of problem. But do you not think end of the day you need to consider the idea of a state where the state needs to have certain powers? For example, when you said, police simply going and catching somebody, but what I know from this law, they need to have a preliminary investigation and we need to rely on our police and their common sense because they are not going to go in simply case and arrest somebody. So it's the time like when you need to state need to have certain power where they can regulate the activities because idea of a state needs to be saved. And I just want to your...
You see, there is nothing... Sorry.
Now, who's responding to that? Okay.
There's nothing more dangerous than relying on the common sense of the police. You see, if you have ever relied on the common sense of the police, you know what's at stake there. And as for... if we are to go by Mr. Shourie's story of what happens at magistrates' courts, obviously M.F. Hussain left India because he had too many teas and photographs to take with the different magistrates in different part of India. And he couldn't keep up with it. That's all.
Are you squabbling again? Stop it. Now, the next question, please.
I think a factual correction is called for. Yes, cases were filed against him all over the country, which was very unfair. Law was misused. But let's not let's not state all the facts. The fact is that Supreme Court intervened and all the cases were clubbed in one court. So he did not have to go to many courts all over. So let's also not exaggerate. I think Mr. Hussain leaving India, and I have to say this with great trepidation, Mr. Hussain leaving in India was more escaping Indian tax. Because
Oh, Mr. Gupta.
I'm sorry. I'm very fond of him. I protect his freedoms. But to make it, I would not make him a cause célèbre for freedom of expression in India.
All right. Clearly, you're not afraid of defamation cases, as you said already. So I'm going to let that remark about taxes pass and go to the next questioner.
Hello,
or
everyone.
commenter.
So my question is to Arun Shourie, sir, and I also want an opinion from Girish Karnad, sir, on this.
Oh, no, please. No.
Just an opinion.
No, please.
Because it's related to both of them.
Yeah,
So,
but you know what? They've been talking all evening. There are other panelists here. So really, if you're going to ask them a question, I would say, can you wait till the end of the line?
Okay, I wouldn't mind if Shubha ji answers. Because she hasn't talked for a long time, right?
So the question now is for Shubha.
I hate playing second fiddle.
So the question is for Arun Shourie, sir. So you suggested that the people in public space need to have thick skin and all of that. Don't you think your suggestion is based on an assumption that everybody is equally thick-skinned? So if not, do you suggest that someone who is very sensitive or someone who is soft should not enter a public domain? That's my first question. Second thing is...
One question only, please, for the moment.
No, it's very related to this.
Okay.
So there are laws and there is this whole media censorship and all that, but there are situations where a law cannot do anything. For example, when the panelists were talking, for each panelist, there was a group which agreed on that, there was a group which disagreed. And at some point, when Girish Karnad sir was talking, it reached to a level where we as a group, as one of the groups, started making him uncomfortable to talk, right? So Girish sir could be, so Girish sir could be very thick-skinned, but not everybody is like that. So how we as a society should address this issue? Because law cannot come for our help in this context. Thank you.
Shubha? No, please, Mr. Shourie, let Shubha address this question because you and Mr. Karnad are getting too much screen time, yeah? So you don't want to talk about it? You're going to give it back to the boys, they'll start fighting again. Come on. Okay, anybody else on this panel? Mr. Thakur, you haven't said anything. All right, Mr. Shourie, it devolves to you.
By default, can you just put it on again? We want freedom, but we are not prepared to do anything for it or not suffer for it. Gandhiji used to say, it is not that the Indians don't want freedom. They want freedom, but they don't want to do anything for it, and it actually will be quite happy if in the process of getting it, they made some money also. So this is the problem. If you stand up, then the other fellow will do something or the other, but please have the confidence the society's mores are such, the society's traditions are such that it will be with you. And as far as this, if I may just point to one thing, I requested Swapan, because of these gadgets and so on, he's so good at it, to actually see what this section 295A is that Girish is so concerned about. Zara suniye aap. It says, deliberate and malicious acts. Deliberate and malicious acts intended to outrage. The prosecution has first to establish that. It will never be able to establish it if it is of a genuine criticism of anything. So it says deliberate and malicious acts intended to, so you have to establish that his intention was to outrage the sentiments of anybody else. Deliberate and malicious acts intended to outrage religious feelings of any class by insulting its religion, not criticizing, by insulting its religion or religious beliefs. I mean, this is as liberal a provision as it can be. And I cannot imagine that anybody would say, even if I had the deliberate intention and this malicious intention of outraging anybody else's religious feelings, I should have that freedom? That's nobody's case.
Okay, thank you.
So this 295 is just a ghost.
Sorry, I want to answer that.
All right.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Hold your mic
In
up.
Karnataka, a man was actually arrested because he made a pun on Ganesha in his this, and the police decided that that was deliberate intention. That's it. You see, the point is, one thing is to have a law.
New voice.
But why have a law? Why have a law which threatens people?
May I just point out something?
Jeez.
On Twitter, the day when the ISIS beheadings took place, a very notable human rights activist who has been awarded by international organizations, given the Padma various things, put up a morphed photograph of the head of Abu Bakr Baghdadi, the caliph of the ISIS, and put it on a figure of Kali. Now, by right, she should have been prosecuted under 295, which would have evoked outrage.
Quite right.
She,
or he,
but she wasn't. Because I think people did the right thing and said, okay, she apologized, and that was the end of the story. So I think the point is there, that sometimes common sense has to take over these things.
Okay, I assume.
And
you want to
also
speak, Mr.
people's
Gupta?
good sense also has to prevail.
It's
one
easy for Mr. Swapan Dasgupta to talk of common sense. He has the media, he's got the people, he's got the attention, he's got the audience. Not everyone who's arrested under 295A has that advantage.
Well, I agree.
Therefore, you should be championing the arrest of such a person under 295. No, please, therefore, I would want you to publicly say that Tista Setalwad should have been arrested under 295.
Okay, Mr. Gupta, elevate,
look,
please.
Don't switch arguments.
Look, I think there is something to both arguments. There's something to what Girish is saying, because laws like this can be misused by policemen, but policemen can misuse any law. Somebody sits on a fast, policemen pick him up or pick her up for 309, that is attempt to commit suicide, right? So police can use any law. In fact, in the north they say police to rassi ko bhi saap bana sakti hai, right? They can just declare it. But having said that, I think we should also not put our liberalism and tolerance to extreme tests, or as in a society. Now, there are certain things that you need to be sensitive about. I would fight to protect Hussein's freedom and Hussein's personal safety to any extent. But really, if you look at it from the point of view of any Hindu with any bit of, unless he's a total atheist, she's a total atheist, some of those paintings are offensive. and I think a lot of the Hindus, I may not agree with them because maybe I'm more thick-skinned, but a lot of the Hindus are well within their rights to say, why are you only choosing our gods and goddesses to portray like this? Because we know in this country, and frankly we know around the world, that Muslims feel offended if you portray their prophets, right? So nobody does it. In fact, even when the cartoons appeared in Denmark, they got very little support globally because people said this is a well-known thing. This is a well-known offense. Don't cause it. But Mr. Hussain will not do that. No, let me complete this. Somebody mentioned the film Fire. Now, if censors were going after a film showing a lesbian relationship between two women, it was an open and shut case of interference by censors and should have been contested. And all of us weighed in for the filmmaker, but really, and we never said this in writing and public speech, I'm saying it for the first time, it was all right to do this. We supported the filmmaker, but did the two women in that film have to be named Radha and Sita? Did they? And if somebody tells me it wasn't deliberate, because somebody did it to cause a little sensationalism, थोड़ा ban होगा, शोर मचेगा, उसके बाद में film का lift हो जाएगा, थोड़ी बहुत चल जाएगी. So this is also, I think we are also pushing at things too much. I would still find it impossible to be on the other side when something like this breaks out, but I can't, in this forum, I can't help raising this question.
Well, let me answer that question. Let me point out that the first Hussain painting, sketch that was objected to, was 20 years old. There was no objection for 20 years until an RSS chap in Nagpur started by saying he has painted the naked Saraswati. And suddenly everyone was discovering all kinds of meanings in Hussain. You see, so if you look at Hussain, I'm sorry, this is not correct. So if you look at the whole history of Hussain, you can see how a persecution campaign was started, when it was started, and where it really, was directed to.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Just hang on a minute. No, the other person had the microphone.
I wanted to add one thing.
Can I say something?
Goddesses are Raja Ravi Verma's paintings.
Sir.
And the models were from Bombay, Bindi Bazaar.
Please don't learn from the panel and not respect the chair. Yeah, so your turn will come. Mr. Malhotra.
Yeah, I think whether it happened right away or 20 years later is not the issue, because a whole lot of human rights issues are raised by people where the problem and the situation has been going on for a long time. But the fact that it was tolerated and no one noticed it for a long time does not give it a license to continue. So,
Sir, you've been very patient.
I almost forgot the question. So this question was asked on Twitter by one of my friends, that the very recent incident of the internet lockdown in Baroda, right, which just happened a day before. So my question is to either Mr. Shekhar Gupta or Mr. Sankarshan, whoever wants to take, because they are active on social media, they use internet, and one person who doesn't use social media, maybe Mr. Arun Shourie.
Why don't you just ask one person? I think it's good. I'm going to ask Mr. Thakur to take the...
Fine, sure. So how are we supposed to react? How should a person react to this internet lockdown in Baroda?
Mr. Thakur. The internet
I'll
was
tell you
locked
what the
down in
background
Baroda.
is. Look, an objectionable photograph was being circulated on WhatsApp. And that provoked tension and rioting in Baroda.
As in Muzaffarnagar before
of
that. As in Muzaffarnagar before that.
As it happened before that.
I mean, there has to be...
completely right to shut it down.
But who was
Let's just get one thing clear. And that's a larger point. India is not a libertarian society. There are certain norms, there are certain rules, codes. The question is how much of accommodation can these have? There are times when you must draw a Lakshman Rekha and say, this is not acceptable. Now, if you without any norms, I don't think it is possible for India to survive.
Mr. Thakur, would you like to respond? Or have you taken Maun for this panel?
No. Broadly, I cannot disagree with what Swapan is saying, because, freedoms have to have, reasonable limits. I mean, I cannot swing my arm when I've reached your nose. I mean, you have to be considerate of these things. And when there is a situation when an act is causing public mayhem, death, I mean, there has to be some... Also, if I may, and I have long held this view, I use social media, I sort of use the technology, all of it. I respect what is now called citizen journalism. But, the journalism comes from a certain training of contexting, checking, putting things in perspective, which is our training. Everyone who's a journalist here, we go through a process. I mean, maybe I'm not using an objectionable phrase here, but from pig to pork, there has to be a process. And journalists go through that process, and when they violate those processes, they either lose their jobs or get taken to court. There is something to pay for. Social media, social journalism, it almost rejoices in the lack of any self-discipline or self-restraint. And I find that scary.
And also the lack
In fact,
of
the most scary thing I find about social media is anonymity.
Yeah.
And I would say if there's one reform is required, anybody on social media should declare their real identity, because anonymity brings out the worst in human beings.
The worst trolling happens by people who are...
No, I get abused all the time by Kala Kutta, Bigi, Billy, this mooch, this, that. Okay. How can I even take offense?
Mr. Shourie, please respond, but please keep it short.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
Madam, I was told that we should belong to the Elizabeth Taylor School of Public Speaking. as she told her husband, I shan't keep you long. So I'll just 2 points. You see, please do not become a fundamentalist in anything, even in regard to the championing the social media. Let us assume that because of that photograph, as Swapan has informed us, tensions rise, Hindus kill Muslims, Muslims kill Hindus. Then you say, Arey, the administration did not act in time. 30 people have died. They could have done this simple thing. So, and secondly, just imagine what happens in a riot. The first thing the administration does is curfew. Now, you can say that, look here, these fellows are restraining my personal freedom to move about, which is guaranteed in the constitution. But you have to keep people in their houses so that they don't come on the street and kill each other. So it's that. Please look at maybe this local policeman does something and on Ganesh's pun is done and then the local policeman acts, but that does not mean that you condemn all local administration and say that whenever they are acting, they are doing something wrong. There are a few bad schools, but you don't condemn, you don't therefore write off all education.
Okay, I'm going to let one more question come in because it's from a young lady and I'm biased towards women. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to end it. It's 8:20 and we seem to have reinvented the wheel several times this evening. So you get the last word. Even though the person standing behind you is my friend. You go first. Yeah. Here, take this mic from here.
It's probably working.
All right, so there are about 10 people behind me. I'm feeling very bad for you, sorry. So I'll get to who the question is for in a second. I've just noted down a lot of points while listening to all of you. My name is Ragini and I live in Bangalore for the last 10 years. And I'm not giving my introduction. I'm telling you why I'm asking this question. I live in Bangalore for the last 10 years and I don't feel safe with my freedom of speech. The question here is, are we gagged or bound? It's not, are you gagged or bound? Is it, are we all gagged or bound? And I can't speak for we, but I can speak for me, and I'll tell you why I feel that. I'll give you an example. As you said, if there was this entire Facebook incident, somebody spoke about Bal Thackeray, 2 girls were put in jail. I am scared of putting up my opinion or sharing something I feel strongly about because I know that it can be misinterpreted and I do not have the power or the means or the resources to fight the court, fight all those details because I am a normal person living, not a public entity, and I need my job, I need my visa, etc., all of which will be denied if I am caught into any kind of controversy of this sort. So that means I need to keep my mouth shut or I may get into trouble and may not get to live a normal life. So when Mr. Karnad, when you were speaking, there were people jeering you, saying, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of speech. To all of you, I'm really happy you feel so, but you cannot speak for we. You have freedom of speech, great. I don't.
I knew I was right to let a young lady speak last. Is there a question? Because you've been wonderful. I think you've made all the points that needed to be made for this evening. So unless there really is a question, I'm going to go out on that very happy high note.
The question is just this, the question was to you rather, are we gagged or bound? And yes, I believe, and Mr. Shourie also said that we have to suffer a little to get what we want. So yes, we are gagged or bound. We may not feel it as much today, but we're just so close to it. So the question is to you that yes, who is the question to? Who is gagged or bound?
I'll take the question. It's a very ironic moment to ask me that question because tonight my job is to gag and bind, which I'm going to do now. Thank you all very much, gentlemen. It's very, very interesting what we reveal about ourselves when we talk about the freedom of expression. Thank you for being so forthright. Thank you for being so honest. Shubha, Mudgal, my fellow female panelists, couldn't have done it without you. Thank you all very much for being here. Good night.
Wow, that was a wonderful session indeed. We have a lot to take back from this amazing session. Coming to the end of this fest, the 3-day memorable extravaganza was a great experience for the thousands of us gathered here. On behalf of the Bangalore Literature Festival, a big thank you to all of you present here who took your valuable time out to participate in this literature festival. We hope to see you here next year as well. Bangalore Literature Festival signing out. Mundina Sanchikeyalli Bheti Agona.
Thank you.